Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this wellness podcast. I am your host, Star Friedenberg, and the podcast is called Can't Make This Sugar, Honey, Ice, and Tea Up, and I'm not allowed to use the word as I've just learnt on community guidelines within the first 7 seconds. So I thought, actually, for hilariousness in a way, is maybe I could say, because often when I use the swear word sugar, honey, ice, and tea, I always go, oh, shiitake. And shiitake mushrooms are obviously a big thing and all about the mushroom and fungi world now taking over. So I thought, why not say can't make this shiitake up? So when you hear me say that going forward, please understand there is a purpose and a reason and refer to this podcast for explanation. So let's get on today. So today's not necessarily going to be a long podcast with my voice explaining my personal life stories and sort of creating context around why I'm motivated to do what I do, the experience and exposures that have basically forged my path onto why I'm doing this. And let's get on with it. So the topic of today is we're talking about milks. And it's recently come to light, of course, dairy intolerance is, the fad at the moment, and everyone's avoiding dairy like the plague. And that will obviously encompass milk, and milk, what's, the most common one, especially in the UK, because of the coldness. You're drinking tea, you're drinking coffee, you're drinking different forms of hot beverages, matcha, etc., just to endless list and not really relevant to this. But the whole point of it is that we've gone from this societal shift going, dairy is bad, and, for various reasons. And there was a documentary I watched, oh gosh, I can't remember how many moons ago, maybe 2016 or 17, something around there, called Cowspiracy on Netflix. I assume it's still on there because obviously it's done so well, and a lot of people still come into the clinic saying, oh my gosh, have you watched this? And I'm like, yeah, quite a while ago. And, it's quite informative, very eye-opening. And the biggest thing is just, the treatment of animals, and also how healthy is the milk, actually, and factoring in with what the cows are being or consuming and what they're also being given in terms of the antibiotics and all of that. So, the milk is kind of in question at the moment. But of course, being and in reference to the UK, if you think about there's a lot of farms. I don't know why, but Ireland is coming into my mind, and I just think about, and as I've been in Kilkenny on a farm there, and it was just really wonderful just to see the treatment and the care when you really do source from local farmers, and the milk quality is just completely different. So what's happening at the moment is that, especially with blood testing, people becoming a lot more aware of what intolerances are, food sensitivities, and food allergies. And the most common thing that I get when I say to people, because this affects your gut health, it's the fuel we're putting into our body, and is ultimately the causation or the cause or the root of, we clean out your vehicle with the gut health cleaning that I do via colonic hydrotherapy. And then it's okay, well, your body's reset. Then obviously, what are you putting in that's re-triggering the sensitivities, the bloating, the inflammation, the upset belly, etc. And so I always encourage people to do blood tests. And the usual common response is, oh, I don't have any allergies because I've done them at the doctor's. And I just obviously want to point reference to the ones that we do in private healthcare versus the NHS or, wherever local to your country. It's not the same thing. So when we test food intolerances and food allergies from a private perspective, the amount of foods that are tested or ingredients that are tested are significantly more and also varied, whereas when you do an allergy test at the doctors, they'll do just a handful of things, and it'll be more environmental, in my opinion. And in the private testing we also do environmental. So they'll just test the most commons where they want to see if you're celiac or you have a dairy allergy, but we're not looking at the exhaustive list of other things that are more common. So that's why I always say, just to reframe your mindset, is if you're thinking, oh, why am I, the most common one is like, I train really well, I drink a lot of water, I sleep a lot, I've got a good work-life balance, but I just can't seem to understand why my stomach is like this, or why my gut health behaves like this, or why am I excessively fatigued? The reasons cannot be justified, and most I would say most common outcome of my answer would be, have you looked at your foods? And they'll say, well, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating properly. And I just have to keep saying, well, just be mindful what on paper is classed as healthy. And I'm just going to use broccoli because that's coming up to my mind now. May be classed as a healthy vegetable, but based on your genetic predispositions or your DNA, your factors, your lifestyle, your environmental exposures, etc. So many factors that can make broccoli for you not good. And so that's why I love this testing, is because, again, I'm working as a client with a client-centered approach, which is saying, what does your body say? What does your body want? What does your body not want? And so we focus on that. So coming back to the premise of dairy, or the purpose of dairy for today, is we're talking about this huge shift now that plant-based milks, have literally skyrocketed, and it's become a really, really good business. But what people are not recognizing is, okay, just because what something says on in this case, the carton or the box, is not necessarily what is inside. So you need to be mindful, you need to be careful. So I use the most common example is Pret. They will give you coconut milk, they will give you soy milk, and they will give you an almond milk alternative. But as I always say, people need to be careful because, if you have a gluten problem, I typically say to avoid oat milk, right? If you have in my case, I have a rice allergy, very unfortunate, but it is what it is. And coconut milk often has components of rice in it. So then again, can't have that either. And then almond is quite a common allergy as well in terms of a nut response. So then you can't have that either. And then soy milk as well is often a substitute. And I kind of think it stems back to, culturally, in Asia, Asian people are raised on soy fermented products. It's sort of in their system. They know how to process and digest it, so they're more acclimatized to consuming a product like that. But typically in the West, I tend to tell people, please avoid soy like the plague, because it's very, very, very big on disrupting hormones, which is another huge thing that our population is struggling with. Because I don't know if you've seen the huge increase in, polycystic ovaries, hormone problems, fertility issues. And so I just ask people to avoid soy like the plague. So then you go, okay, well, if I can't have dairy and I can't have basically all the other options, what can I have? And so I kind of get people to say, maybe start learning to drink black versions of whatever you're drinking, or herbal teas, or a black coffee. Or what a lot of people do is they just bring their own goodies with them alongside, and maybe it might actually in another positive way, maybe taking away from you having to buy those things, which one helps reduce your consumption of it, so you don't have it all the time. And it can also be good for your bank account as well, because it's really ridiculous. I mean, to go anywhere in London to buy a coffee is like any between £3 to £5, and even more in some places. And I think, wow, like, how do you justify that? Because obviously with my accounting background, I know that selling a coffee is like 10p or something like that. So it's a really, really, really fantastic business model. But in terms of from as being the consumer, I'm just like, I cannot justify it. So you will rarely, rarely see me buying coffee outside unless there's like an intentional business meeting or something like that. But I like to make the good stuff at home because I know where the ingredients are sourced. I know they're organic, I know they're healthy, and I also cook them make them at the right temperatures as well, because people also don't know about that. But anyway, just lots of sidetrack and a little extra information. So, I just can't justify it. If you extrapolate, spending that kind of money over a year, it's thousands and thousands of pounds. And you just think, could you have spent that money better? I don't mind spending money, girl math, I don't mind spending money. And my boyfriend will definitely say, yes, definitely too. But it's all about the premise of, I will pay for something where I recognize its value. And if I don't, then I cannot justify it, even if it's £1. Right. So when we're coming to milk, so it's now, again, huge shift on, I guess I always go back to South Africa in my head, as it was so close-minded. And that's why I moved, countries, is because I just wanted to be with a system that was a little bit more ahead, a little bit more open, a little bit more interested in health and well-being. But, the world is catching up. So the shift now going into plant-based milks, or as I remember my brother was like, oh, all you're doing is eating this rabbit food. Like, where's your South African? Where's the meat? Where's this? When I was being a vegan for a few years. But so anyway, I just want to say, I'm just sidetracking a lot today, but the premise is with milk, just because it's plant-based doesn't mean it's healthy, right? And so the biggest thing at the moment, and there was a huge awareness last year around how much weight people are gaining because they're adding plant-based milks in the diet. And I'm going to really name and shame, it's the oat milk. And that's quite interesting, because I remember when I was trying out at a random gym, and there was a poster on going, I cut out oat milk and I lost 10 kilograms as a result of it. And you think like, wow, that's 22 pounds, by the way. So you kind of like, wow, that's a lot, how fattening, because we lose awareness about how many drinks we're having within a day. And it's the same thing when when people are saying to me in the clinic, I want to lose weight, and I say, well, do you have sugar in your tea or coffee? And they'll say, yeah, I do. And it's like, okay, well, how much are you having? How many drinks are you having a day? And it's scary, it can be 5, it can be 10 cups. And then when you add all of that sugar up, it's kilograms and kilograms. And you think that's such a quick and easy fix if you can start to eliminate that. And I am not a fan of sweetener, especially the one I always talk about is, excuse me, the one I always talk about is Canderel. I mean, I don't know what other sweeteners are out there, but I avoid them like the plague, because I used to say back in the day, too much sugar, okay, we're going to, face the pandemic of diabetes. But also, if you have too much sweetener and all artificial ingredients, then we're going to face the pandemic of cancer. And it's kind of like, which one are you veering towards? And it's, we need to try and stay away from that, because these are the two most popular issues, health issues, I would say, that are plaguing society at the moment. So it's just quite interesting. So what I've got here is we're going to be talking about reviewing the 7 healthiest milk options out there. And what I will do is a big shout out, not that I'm being sponsored or anything by this company at all, it's just I really do notice from all the brands and products that I do try, because I always am, I basically am a product reviewer, and finding the best healthy ingredients and products available to support my personal well-being. And then, in a fortunate way, then I can share my research and knowledge with people to say, please be mindful of this, please read that, please don't do that one. That one says it's healthy, but actually when you look at the ingredients, it's really, really not. So I'm going to give a big shout out here to the brand called Plenish. And they do have varying flavors as well that are really good, as well as barista versions. And I always recommend barista versions where you can, because when you use a milk frother, or in my case, I use Velvetizer to make milk, or you have a coffee machine, etc., the milk just froths better, and it gives you that cafe barista like coffee, and you just feel like, I'm just having something like a treat, really, really delicious. So I really do recommend them. But not only that, I will also be talking about cow's milk. There's another milk that people almost don't know, which is called Jersey milk. And Jersey milk you can find in the shops. I do know I can get it in Waitrose. I've seen it in Sainsbury's. I've seen it in Tesco's. I've seen it in Asda. Just to name a few shops. So it is available, but not, a little as well. So it's definitely available in many places, but because it's not a widely known product, they don't stock a lot on the shelves, and often, for my own personal shop, it is sold out. So just sort of, I say, be mindful. It does go off quite quickly. So just be mindful of that when you plan your shop, how much milk you have, because it's sold in a litre form. And Jersey milk basically, which I'll talk about later, is it's dairy milk product, but it has a different protein in it called A2 protein, and so it's actually easier to digest on a system that struggles with lactose issues. Right, so plant-based milk options typically contain less protein and other nutrients than cow's milk. So this is another big thing that people, with regards to, focus on their protein intake, they're being mindful of that. Also, other aspects that you'd get from dairy, which would be calcium, etc. There is actually another amazing product I've just discovered. It is a dairy product, but it's a protein milk. I forget the name off the top of my head, but where I have been able to see it being sourced from is Sainsbury's. And because it's relatively new, they are often on sale. So you maybe get 1 for 20% off, or you can get 2 for 1 or something like that. But really, really nice milk. So if you're someone who doesn't mind to to have or consume dairy, it's really, really helpful because you can up your protein intake to try and reach targets. Because we really, really, really am a very big fan about protein and increasing protein intake. Because it's really good for your body, your health, your bones, your muscles, amino acid, it's really just so good for you, and it helps with longevity. And that's all that I am focused about is, I always say to people, they're like, oh, how old do you want to live to? People say a really ridiculously high number, and it's like, okay, but let's just use 100 for this ease of example. If you want to live to 100, you go, cool. But my next question to you is, how is that going to look like? Are you going to be frail in bed, unable to talk, can't move, can't walk? This is broken, that's not working, this is failing. Or do you want to live to like a healthy 100? And I always think of Italian people for some reason. They're just out in the sun, they have a glass of wine, walking on the streets everywhere, fully active, full of life, so empowered. And you think like, that is what I want. So the healthy 100, right? So that's what I want to help achieve here is, we set our future today. So our actions today will dictate the outcome of our future. So micro habits, small daily habits are really the success to the outcome of your healthy 100. I'm kind of liking this. I'm going to sort of catchphrase that, the healthy 100. Now, what I recommend before obviously taking any of this advice on with regards to which milks you should go for, if you want to do a blood test through me, I recommend a fantastic brand from America, and it's $389 a test, but I can get $110 off. So if you want to know more, do message me or contact me directly through the email address or WhatsApp number that is provided under this podcast. And then we'll be able to help you obviously navigate, because I love how they display. It's that, allergies, no, don't eat these. Food sensitivities, no, don't eat these. Minimize these, really, not eat them, but minimize your exposures. These are okay to eat. And then they've also got a category, which is superfoods. Like for your body, your genome, this is what you should definitely be adding to your lifestyle. And it can surprise you what comes up. So this is what I love. So if you want to learn more, then yes, okay, contact me directly. So another thing as well is when we talk about health, we're talking about the calorie consumption. So as I was just referencing, oats are really, really high in calories. Oat milk is quite fattening, and more so than actually dairy milk. But often other plant-based milks do not. So as I was saying earlier, like dairy aisles now are just literally, this is fad. It's exploded, different, and there's even different types of cow's milks. There's milk alternatives, and this is a new age thing now. So, back in the day, it was like, what's a plant-based milk? So although people claim that certain types of milk are healthier than others, there's no single best milk for everyone. So I'm just going to iterate again. It's a very unique to you, customized process. And that's why I highly recommend the blood test before you even consider which is another big thing that I harp on about on social media, is about, don't watch something and go, oh, I love this. This sounds right for me. I'm going to try it. You need to learn, is this really right for you while working with a healthcare practitioner, right? So the best milk for you will depend on multiple factors, such as dietary preference, maybe your lifestyle choices, you want to be vegan, vegetarian, etc. And then, of course, your food intolerances / food allergies. So another, I'm going to say behind the scenes milk that most people haven't heard of or don't know is hemp milk. So hemp milk is made from ground soaked hemp seeds, which are really great because they're high in protein and omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. I really, really love that. Really good for the brain. Our brain needs a lot of fats in order to function and do well for your day-to-day activities. And since as a population, we're doing so much more than what we used to. And if I think about, the good old caveman, we're doing so much more than, our brains were initially, our whole being was initially made to do. So we really need to support with good fats. And another good fat I always recommend is MCT oil, coconut milk, medium chain triglycerides. Really, really good. And they're really, in terms of both, are really good to help support you with fat burning. Because there was an example with a farmer where he was trying to fatten his cows to, then obviously they go to the slaughter and then use them for beef. And he was like, okay, well, what kind of fats can I get? And then he was feeding them coconuts. And then they ended up getting really lean. So that's sort of where the outcome of like, oh, actually, this is really good for the mind as well for the body. So I highly recommend that. Again, if you need to know more, I'll be able to recommend that. So according, back to the hemp milk, so according to a 2018 review, hemp milk may actually help lower cholesterol levels and thyroid hormone as well. So that's really, really good because, again, cholesterol is a huge problem at the moment as well. And thyroid, as so many people know, thyroid removed on thyroxine, and then that's it. And thyroid is really responsible for many things. When I think of the main ones, I think of metabolism, I think of weight, I think of the yo-yo weight people as well. They go really slim, they get really big, they go up and down. Temperature regulation, mood regulator, and then obviously will affect other things, the knock-on hormones within the body. So that's, the ones I want to point out. But so just to be clear, hemp doesn't contain any lactose, so it can be a valuable, nutritious alternative to cow's milk that other people. So it's not a high amount of calories. So we're looking at like a 240 milliliter serving, so about 8 ounces. So you're getting about 60 calories, which is 3 grams for that. 0 carbs, 5 grams of fat, good phosphorus, so 25% of it. So that's good for bones. Calcium is 20%, magnesium is 15%, and iron 10%. So hemp milk is virtually carb free, so really good for those people who are like paleo, keto, etc. But being aware that some brands do add sweeteners and added sugars, so just be mindful on the label you read. And not only does that then, of course, increase the carb content, but added sugars are also associated with several chronic conditions. And I'm going to use the big one again. I'm going to say the O word, obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, or also known as hypertension, among others. So my big thing is please read your label. And then, of course, buy the hemp without added sugar. And sugars may be listed on the ingredients label as different names. So we're talking about brown rice syrup, evaporated cane sugar, or cane sugar as well. Then we're going to number 2, which is oat milk. So oat milk is made by soaking the whole oats. It's one of the most popular and fast growing cow milk alternative in the world. And so that's why I was harping on about it in the beginning about, it's really one of the most fattening at this time. So please be mindful and even have, what I always recommend is to have an alternative of 3. So in the kitchen, I will have a dairy milk, I have a Jersey milk, I have a cashew nut milk, I have an almond milk. So then I will just rotate. So even within a week, you just have little bits of everything. So you get the variation of, different nutrition, as well as you're reducing the risk of irritation or inflammation to the gut due to sensitivity overload. Right. So According to a review that was done in 2023, the volume of oat milk sales increased by 71% from 2017 to 2018. Can you believe that? And a global annual oat milk sales increased by 700% from 2018 to 2019. So it's really, really taken off. Nutritional values, and I can I say this? I don't know, but I will. Is that oats, in terms of again, my accountant hat on, oats are very, very cheap to sell, so even the whole fad about oatmeal or oats are good for you, I don't agree with that. I never have. It's very low nutrition. The only thing that can then happen is when you start adding your superfoods on top, like goji berries, blueberries, your honey, seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, bananas, etc. That's where the nutrition comes from. Oats are just dense and heavy and feel filling. So I don't see nutritional value in it. But of course, from the seller's perspective, it's very, very, very cheap. So of course, to sell a product and they can make a huge markup on it, they are going to promote oat milk, right? So that to me is like, oh, that makes sense why the sales, the marketing have gone up. And thus, as a result, people have now bought into the idea of oat milk. But of course, then people are now witnessing the consequences of that and then starting to think for themselves. So nutritional values can vary by brand and depend on whether the milk is fortified or not. So again, if we're using the 8-ounce portion or 240 mils of serving oat milk, so you'll be, compared to hemp, double in calories, so 120 calories, 3 grams of protein, 16 grams of carbs, 2 grams of fiber, 5 grams of fat. And in terms of adding your allowances, you'll get 50% of B12, riboflavin, 45% of riboflavin, 25% of calcium, and 20% of phosphorus. So oat milk is naturally sweet anyway, but it's very high in carbs. And one sort of pro I can give to it is that it does contain soluble fiber, so that will then make it creamier as well. So I like creamy milk. I don't know about everyone else. But the soluble fiber absorbs water, so in your intestine, so it turns it into a gel during digestion, which helps to slow digestion and keeps you feeling fuller for longer. So it can also help to stabilize your blood sugar levels and also reduce cholesterol levels. So oat milk also contains a compound called AVNS or avens, which may help properties that can fight inflammation, oxidative stress, and allergic responses. So it does have some benefits, but on an overall, I don't like it. So I don't recommend it personally. But of course, if you have literally no options because of your response in your blood tests, then of course go for it. But if we can sort of tap into my sort of method is just keep a variation of different brands, then of course try have a little bit of everything. Almond milk is number 3. And this process is quite straightforward and simple, very easy to be done homemade. And there's a lot of machines out there. I think it's called Plantly now, and there's a couple of competitors where basically you have this machine, not cheap, it was about 250 quid or so when I bought it, where you can make your own milk basically. And then this was, you put nuts in, that's been soaked, add some water, and then it makes the machine. But actually, the way they promote it, they say it's really good and, it's quick and easy, but you make such a little amount of milk. It requires a lot of ingredients and the time to make it. It's quite noisy, and then you only have a little bit of milk and then you have to still clean the machine. So not a big fan favorite. So I got the machine, used it for about a month, and it's been sitting in the closet since. So I always think just life is too busy and complicated. Might as well make your own. Might as well not waste your time by making your own, rather buy, because there are some good brands out there like Plenish. So what people do as well, like I say, is they soak almonds overnight, and then they can start to actually get and make their own milk through a blender, like a NutriBullet as well. But again, straightforward, just go buy them is what I recommend. So soaking almonds in water, blending them, straining them, and straining away the solids. It's a tasty non-dairy alternative, I would say, personally, especially for those people who cannot tolerate or choose not to drink dairy milk. but it's not safe, of course, if you have a tree nut allergy. So again, be mindful and do your blood tests beforehand. When we're looking at a 240 serving or an 8 ounce of unsweetened almond milk, so please be mindful when you go to the shops to look for the unsweetened version, because that then of course has its own bag of goodies, right? When we're looking at that, the calories are 41, so a lot lower. There's 1 gram of protein, 2 grams of carbs, and 3 grams of fat. Unsweetened almond milk, like I say, is low in calories and much lower in carbs than cow's milk, and it makes a good choice for someone who's on a low carb diet. That said, it is also low in protein and many other nutrients compared to the others that I've just mentioned. So many brands are fortified with calcium. They put vitamin A, vitamin D, and of course the amounts of how much are put in are varying brand to brand. One big thing I need to note here is that some brands also contain additives called carrageenan, and that is used to thicken and prevent separation, but it's very, very, very toxic. So I highly recommend, if you read that, to avoid and put the product down. And especially when I've been to health food stores in America, and I thought, wow, this is the place of the world. They must have the most amazing things, like the celebrities, all the people hear about health and well-being. And I was really shocked and surprised about how bad things were and how many additives and preservatives. And I was like, this is not a health food store. I'm really sorry, but I don't even know how you can put this name on the store. So some animal research suggests that carrageenan promotes intestinal inflammation. So it's a big thing I ask people to stay clear from. And the reason why for that is because it can damage the gut microbiome. So more research in humans is needed to fully understand the impact of it, but just basically please stay away. I'm moving on to the next milk. So the next milk is coconut milk. So coconut is squeezed from the white flesh of the coconut, so it has a pleasant flavor, and it's a good non-dairy alternative that's also safe because if you have a tree nut allergy, you can consume it. So when we're talking about 8 ounces, and again, unsweetened coconut milk, we're looking at 46 calories, has no protein, unfortunately, very low carb, 1 gram, and 4 grams of fat. So it's usually, most milk, coconut milk is packaged in cartons and is blended with water to give it a consistency similar to that of cow's milk. But as I say, it has less protein than almond milk. Many brands also fortify the milk with nutrients such as B12, D, and A, as well as with some other minerals. So just be mindful of that as well. Whereas on the other hand, I don't know if you cook with Thai food, you can get the tin canned coconut milk, which, as I say, is usually intended for culinary purposes. So it tends to be higher in fat, isn't fortified or unfortified, and has much more of a distinctive coconut flavor. So it can be really delicious. It can be costly, but again, I don't recommend as much as possible where you can to have anything from a tin because of heavy metal exposures. Of which that is the most easiest exposure. I always think of tinned tomatoes, sardines, mackerel, and then coconut milk is the coconut cream is the others. So coconut milk generally is higher in fat, a little bit, but not massive. But again, the MCTs, the medium chain triglycerides in coconuts, are linked to some fantastic research around heart health benefits, and also has HDL, which has higher HDL, which is the good cholesterol. So it supports cholesterol. So I really recommend that. But again, just from my own personal experience, just look where coconut milk, if you have a rice allergy, is quite common. Maybe I attract the people that have it too. So you just want to be mindful of that, that it's not laced with an additional ingredient that you may have a sensitivity or an allergy to. Okay, now moving on to number 5 out of 7, which is cow's milk. So cow's milk is most commonly consumed, of course, global, famous, who doesn't consume it? Actually, as I say that, it made me think of something I was told as a child, where it's very less common in Asia for people there to be drinking dairy. So they say that in the West, that to them, we Westerners stink like sour old milk. Like, so apparently back in the day, like when a foreigner would come over, they'd be like, oh, I can smell the Westerner. That's what my mum told me when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. So what do they have, you know? But of course now, I've just been to Japan last year before. So about 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. And I can say life has westernized everywhere. I was expecting to see everyone in kimonos. The lifestyle was different, but it's not really. Everyone is sort of westernized, which I found quite sad and disheartening. And hopefully all these beautiful ancient practices and individual, you know, cultural activities and style and behavior and mannerisms are not completely lost, and then we become a unified oneness where, you know, we're all the same and robotic and, you know, just eat, sleep, work. Anyway, so that's just a side note. But anyway, I was a bit like, oh, okay, this isn't what my mom explained to me when I was younger, and I matched it when being there. But milk is there now. But of course, anyway, let me stop digressing. I just love to chat, right? Good thing I got a podcast. So anyway, so cow's milk, most commonly consumed. It's a really good source of high quality protein. So really good. And like I say, go for that Sainsbury brand as well if you are local to the UK. So it's naturally rich in calcium, so super good for the bones, B vitamins, many minerals. And it's often fortified with vitamins A and D as well, so making it a very nutritious food for both children and adults. So when we're talking about an 8-ounce serving of whole milk, so another big thing I am a big speaker about is I don't believe, and I obviously in my younger years caught in the trap of skimmed milk, semi-skinned, fat-free, blah, blah, blah. I just don't like the idea of what processes a natural product has to go through after, even now, you know, even it's not even natural anymore, is it? It's questionable where it's coming from as well. What it has to go through to be stripped, chemical processes to give it its partially this, partially that. So, and actually it is proven now that whole fats, full fats are good for you. So don't be scared of having a full fat this or a whole fat that. So please be mindful of that. So when you are going to be, if you are going to be buying dairy, and you do, please buy full fat. I think it's the blue one, yeah? So that's what I say. So if we're looking about it, so the calories are more. We're looking at 156 calories on average, 8 grams of protein, 11 grams of carbs, 9 grams of fat. And then your RDA is recommended daily allowance you're getting is your calcium is about 29%, your riboflavin is 30%, phosphorus is 32%, vitamin B12 is 36%, selenium, which is good for anti-inflammatory properties as well, and immune system 9%, potassium is 8%. It's also available in reduced fat versions. Like I say, it's semi-skimmed, 1% skimmed. But research suggests that cow milk is the best milk source of protein, high healthy fats, micronutrients as well. But the protein in cow's milk is the one that is the most commonly tested for food allergens as well as intolerances. So what does happen often, as I see, is that you can have it as a child, but children often outgrow it. But some people may have a lifelong allergy, and then they do need to avoid this beverage and / foods that contain dairy. So in addition, an estimated 65% of the world's population has some degree of difficulty digesting lactose, typical sugar in cow's milk, which is known as lactose intolerance. So it's quite interesting. Then we're coming to number 6, which is A2 milk. So approximately 30% of the protein in cow's milk comes from casein. So I think of milk protein, right? Most dairy cows in the US produce milk that have 2 types of casein, which is A1 beta casein and A2 beta casein. When A1 is digested, a peptide called beta casomorphin 7, so BCM7, is produced. It's linked to digestive symptoms similar to those of lactose intolerance in some people, including most common gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. Certain dairy cows produce milk that contain only A2 beta casein, which doesn't form the BCM7 peptide. So according to a 2023 review, 4 studies reported that A2 milk may be easier to digest cow's milk than A1. So that's that Jersey milk I was talking about earlier. And I do personally note that there is a difference. I can feel it. It's basically, let's call it milk for the sensitive bellies, but the ones that want to have dairy, right? And of course, a straightforward thing is that more research is of course needed in humans to fully understand the effects between A1 and 2 proteins on digestive health. So we're really punting that out there where people can. Please invest in more research. And aside from that, A2 milk is comparable to regular cow's milk. So it's not a good choice if you have an allergy or an intolerance, but it might be worth trying if you experience mild digestive discomfort or problems after drinking regular cow's milk. And the most common I would say is the bloating, the gas, fatigue, and often breakouts on the face or some form on the back, knee, arms, or in the sweat spaces, maybe around the breasts, the bum, okay, the glutes, or behind the legs. So if you have that, then maybe start to think. So one, like my first point of call, just skip all the hassle of guessing, just get blood test done, and then you can see if that is a reaction, is it intolerance, allergy, or both. Then that gives you the next steps. And if it's just a very low level irritation, then maybe try the A2 milk, or then completely swap for plant-based milks whilst you give your gut digestive time to heal and repair, so the inflammation the immune system isn't being triggered, so it can heal. And then you can reintroduce it after this elimination-based diet, maybe about 6 months or so, and see how you get on. But of course, there are these lovely things called digestive enzymes, which you can get one for milk only or dairy only, or you can get a full encompassing, which can help break down carbs, proteins, fats, etc., and dairy. So that can be helpful. So again, if you want to know more, please contact me directly, and I can support you in this. And the last one is soy milk. So soy milk is the closest to cow's milk. This is partly because the soybeans are an excellent source of complete protein, and soy milk is fortified to closely resemble cow's milk as well. So you'll have that texture, and you can argue maybe that's why it's a go-to for some people. Soy milk is a great option if you want to avoid dairy, but you also want a high protein milk beverage. And but Star says it's a big hormone disruptor. And also let's think about where's your background from, because maybe you have the ability to digest it just due to the ancestral aspect of it. In this case, we're talking about 100 gram serving of unsweetened soy milk, which provides the following nutrition. So it's 30 calories, 3.5% protein, 1.3 grams of carbs, 2 grams of fat. And then in terms of the nutrition, its B12 is 16%, calcium 10%, riboflavin 6%, vitamin D 5%, phosphorus 10%. So soybean has been controversial because most soybeans are grown in the US and which are genetically modified, so to resist the herbicide glyphosate, so another big no. So yeah, just putting that out there. However, research suggests that consuming soy milk may have several benefits, which some are improving cholesterol, blood pressure levels as well. And there are claims that soy may increase breast cancer risk because it mimics estrogen in the body, which is what I was saying about hormone disruption. But there's other research, so I'm just going to play devil's advocate, that suggests that soy products may actually reduce the risk of cancer. But again, I think that's coming down to genetics as well, and your behavior, where you come from, etc. So some brands produce organic soy milk, which is made from non-genetically modified organisms, so non-GMO soybeans, and are free from conventional pesticides and herbicides. So sort of, just reflecting on overall of those 7, the biggest things are try bioorganic, read your labels to see what it is, try source unsweetened, and also be mindful about just personal preference, right? Taste is everything, and if you don't like the taste of something, you're not going to consume it. So I think of the classic example that sometimes I will have an almond milk in a beverage, and it's just so overwhelming, the taste, and it just feels like the almond has taken up the entire flavor and it disrupts it. So sometimes depending on what you drink, and if I just use teas, for example, if you're having a different type of tea, that flavor may not complement the tea leaf, for example. So just being mindful. So I would say maybe have a little test run of all different flavors as well to see what might feel more aligned to you, but then going back subject to blood test just to see what is out there. But of course, as I say, sometimes some of the types of milks I've said maybe I don't think are really good, can be really beneficial for you. And again, custom-centered approach, right? So it can work for you, maybe not for me and not somebody else, but for somebody else it does, right? So all milk, as well as all milk, I'm going to come to conclusion now. All milk and milk substitutes offer various health advantages. So you're looking at reducing cholesterol, boosting antioxidants, and also the main one, gut health is trying to keep your gut happy, your microbiome happy. So it's keeping you safe from an allergic response or an intolerance or food sensitivity. So milk is also only one part of your diet. It's a big thing. So with whichever milk you decide to drink, it's important to pair it with a balanced diet that consists of nutrient-dense foods, so avoiding processed foods, just being mindful that you need to have nutrition in your diet and not just takeaways and heavy and oily and greasy and artificial and GMO'd and additives and preservatives and intins and heavy metals exposed, and pesticide, insecticide, herbicide. You just really need to be mindful, just keeping it simple, keeping it healthy, keeping it nutritious. And again, I'm always harping on about this, but remember to check your labels because you want to avoid the added sugars and as well as the unwanted additives. And plant-based milks are generally low in protein than other nutrients, such other than cow's milk. So maybe you want to consider speaking to a healthcare practitioner, whether plant milk is appropriate for young children, because there's this whole new shift, the consciousness society's like avoid dairy, and it's like, okay, but maybe the kid needs it, your child needs it, because it plays an important component with regards to the bone density, the calcium makeup, and a lot of aspects of the basis of being a healthy being. So I wouldn't completely eliminate it unless there is a severe reason through blood testing to confirm. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say today about milk, and just maybe I've given you something to think about, or maybe an alternative to think about. There are a lot of other milks out there, but these are the most kind of common, and thus as a result mostly available. But a couple of other ones I've seen are pea protein as well, sprout milk. I've tasted it. I do not recommend it. Is potato milk, tiger nut milk. These are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, so there are lots out there, but not necessarily clean, not necessarily healthy, and not necessarily tasty either. So just being mindful for that. So if this podcast sort of today is giving you a frame of mind to go, maybe I need to do a blood test, do contact me, because I have a really, really great company that I recommend that's actually based in the US as well, and they're really, really harmonious and aligned with my values about they support gut health. And if you do want to know some of the brands, do contact me. I've got lots of referrals on with Amazon, so I can send you links for the ones I recommend, and then you can take it from there and just start increasing variety in your diet, because that makes me happy, because we're increasing your gut microbiome by having different strains of bacteria that can be created from different microorganisms from different foods, exposures, etc. And also keeping your palate happy, because we just get quite monotonous and repetitive with foods, and that can be quite boring for the body and the mind. So we just want to keep things entertained, fresh, new, interesting, right? So on that note, I'm going to wish you guys wherever you are in the world lots of love, and hoping you taking something from this health journey today. And I'll see you next week for another episode on something gut health related. Bye.